The problem we have, and this is a major problem that we have on the planet, is our lack of sensitivity. Emotionally. So the more desensitized we become emotionally, the more difficult it becomes to sense another person's emotion. The more difficult it becomes to sense another person's emotion, the more difficult it becomes to have a relationship with them. If you look back on your relationships, the most frustrating relationships generally are the ones where the other person hasn't got a clue of what you're feeling. Aren't they the most difficult relationships to maintain? It's like you're having a relationship with a brick wall, basically. Now, the only way that we can become sensitive to what another person is feeling is by firstly become sensitive to what we actually feel. But as we do that, we grow in our sensitivity. We then have a stronger ability to sense and experience emotion, to actually sense and experience feelings, rather than have just thoughts all the time. Now, as a result of that, you can see that if that is the case, a relationship with God should make us more sensitive to emotion. It should make us more sensitive to feelings. We should be able to accurately determine over a period of time, we should be able to accurately determine the feelings of our own and of others, and even accurately feel God's feelings for us at some point. And as we grow in our relationship with God, this is what actually happens. You will eventually be able to feel God's emotions on all sorts of subjects. This is a very rapid way of determining truth. If you can feel God's emotions about something, then you can feel what God feels about it, and therefore be able to determine whether your feelings are in harmony with those feelings or not. In addition, due to the sensitivity of your own soul growing, your capacity to experience emotion growing, you will be able to accurately feel other people's emotions. You can actually get to a point where you so accurately feel their emotions, you can feel the very moment they entered them. You can actually you can tell their history to them without having to have a conversation. Do you understand? Yeah? This is one of the capacities of our soul. To be able to sense other people so strongly, and ourselves as well, so strongly, that we finish up being so close to everyone that we can feel exactly why they were angry in that particular moment and what emotion it related to from their childhood or from their life experience that caused them to feel angry in that particular moment. We can feel the flavour of the anger even, whether it was projected as to a woman or to a man, and who created it inside of them as a result. And we will even be able to trace them back to actual events in their lives and actually recall to them events in their own life that trigger the emotion for them again. This is the capacity of your soul. It has the ability to do these things. Now, every single person who reaches at one with God can do these things by themselves without any external assistance. So in other words, every person who reaches at one with God can automatically feel the emotions of every person around them and also know why those emotions exist in that person. Now, can you see that's a fantastic way of knowing a person? Because the person could be saying a heap of things to you, but at the same time you could be feeling a whole heap of different things which are the truth of the interaction. Can you see that? And that's a very powerful eternal benefit to your soul. Because instead of seeing things as they are presented to you, you actually see things as they are actually occurring, which is exactly the way God sees them. God sees things as they actually are, as they're actually occurring. And in the end, the more and more we become sensitive to this emotional process that's going on, we finish up being able to do exactly the same thing God can do. And that is to be sensitive to everything occurring around me and know why it's actually occurring. Not why everybody thinks it's happening, but why it's actually happening. Now, to me, that is a huge benefit of having a relationship with God. You now have an ability to understand every single interaction and every single relationship in your life completely, because you can feel every one of them completely. So you can get up in front of a group of 50 or 100 people and feel every single person's projections at you. Now, some people go, I don't know if I want to do that, but depending on this projection. But it's actually a very beautiful state to have, because what you finish up doing is you finish up relating to each person exactly as you can feel is their emotional condition, which is obviously a very loving thing, obviously, that you can do for another person. So, if you think about it in terms of summary of that, God is speaking to us through her feelings, through her emotions. To hear God, we must be sensitive enough to feel her emotions. How do we speak to God? Through our emotions. We must be sensitive enough to know what we emotionally feel in order to actually have the correct message being going to God of what we want to portray. When people pray with their mind, when they say a prayer, like, for instance, Our Father, art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, that's a common prayer that we know from the Bible. And it's only coming from the mind. Can you see God sees that as well? God can feel that. God can feel that there's no sincerity in it. God can feel that there's no interest in it. God can feel that there's no meaning to it, really. That we don't perhaps even believe what we're saying, even. God can feel all of that. So from God's perspective, it's pointless doing it if there is going to be no sincerity and no meaning and no emotion in it. Can you also see that emotions also are a lot about our desires? So if our desires are pure and motivated by love, God can easily feel them and answer those desires. But if our desires are not very pure and motivated by addictions, then God will want us to challenge our addictions so that we don't have them anymore. So the answer will be very different. And if I can feel God and her answer, I will know when I'm getting answered with the words no in comparison to the words yes. Right? Because I'll be able to feel God's emotions through that process. And then when the answer is no, and I want it to be yes, then I can see that I must be out of harmony with truth somehow. And I can therefore interpret truth through this process. So I eventually get to the stage where can be so sensitive that every truth that God knows, I can, by having this emotional experience with God, be able to determine what is the truth and be able to absorb that truth from God. Now, if you imagine what truth there is available to you in an infinite universe, there's truths about physics, science, mathematics, health, the body, the mind, the spirit body, the soul, laws. There's all sorts of truths available in the universe. And what we're saying is through this personal connection with God, you'll be able to find out every single one of them with one proviso. It'll be if you're sensitive to the answer. Does that make sense? Now, like I said earlier, you can be sensitive to one answer and completely oblivious of another, depending on the particular emotional injuries that you have within yourself at the time. So if we ask some questions and we believe it's with sincerity and we get no answer whatsoever, then there can only be a couple of problems. One is that we're not sincere, and the second is that we are not sensitive enough to hear the answer. That can only be the two possible problems in our interaction with God. Because God, like every loving parent, wants to give us answers to everything we ask. Mary, you want?